All right, welcome to our last section today in Chapter 4, which is on journalizing correcting entries and then correcting any posting errors that may have occurred. This is kind of just a wrap up of our Chapter 4, recognizing that sometimes we do make mistakes and we could have an incorrect journal entry and how to prepare what we call a correcting entry, and then also how to correct any errors that might be made during our posting process. So, anytime that we have an incorrect journal entry, it should be corrected by using an additional journal entry. And the reason I say this is you can go through and cross things off. However, remember that if time has passed, your journal is in chronological order. So we don't want to have all of our transactions done through the 20th and then recognize that we made an error on the 3rd. There's no place to put a new 3rd entry. You wouldn't want to have, after the 20th date, the 3rd of January. That wouldn't make any sense. So in that situation, you can't just go through and cross things out. You would have to make a correcting entry. So if you need to do a correcting entry, what happens is we make a memorandum. Now remember that a memorandum is a source document, and the reason that we prepare it is so we can have a reason, a document, a source for this correcting entry. So you can see that our correcting entry says a cash payment of $120 for advertising on March 31st was debited in error to miscellaneous expense. So what this is going to look like is, again, it was discovered on April 17th that a payment of cash for advertising in March was journalized and posted in error as a debit to miscellaneous expense instead of advertising expense. So it was posted to miscellaneous expense and it should have been to advertising. So what's happening here is we need to debit advertising because that was the account that should have got this transaction in the first place. And we need to credit miscellaneous expense because it shouldn't have been put there. So that's what our transaction looks like. So when we put it in our journal, we put it on April 17th. We write advertising expense, miscellaneous expense. We put our M15 because that was the memorandum. And we put 120 and 120. Please note that we do it on April 17th. We don't backtrack and say that it should have been in March. Because what's happening is we found the error in April, and so that's where it's going to actually get journalized. So that's a correcting entry. Okay. Used when you make a mistake, and making mistakes is okay, but remember that our journal is a permanent record, so we can't just go through and erase things. And so we've talked about journaling before. I'm not too worried about that with you guys. So now let's talk about correcting an error in posting to the wrong account. So if, for example, something got posted to prepaid insurance and it should have been posted to supplies, what happens is we draw a line through the entire incorrect entry. So the prepaid insurance, we draw a line all the way through it. And then we come back in here and record the posting in the correct place. So the 12th, the 4th, 100, and updating our balance over here. With posting, it is not as important because it doesn't necessarily have to be in chronological order. And I know that's kind of funny, but we'll talk more about that later on in Accounting 1. I'm not too worried about trying to explain it to you now, but if you have dates that are out of order when you are posting, that's actually okay, because all, remember, our general ledger is showing us our up-to-date balance in our account. It's not necessarily a chronological, that's what the journal is for, okay? And so also, if you have to correct an incorrect amount, again, you would just draw a line through it and write the correct amount above it, okay? So instead of $450, it should have been $45. And so that's all they're doing there, is just doing a quick cross out. If, for example, you had it in the wrong place, like you put it in a credit and it should have been a debit, then simply, again, cross out, put it in the right place, and then obviously you'd have to remember to update your balance as well. So that's what we just talked about here. All good. And so really, this is a pretty simple lesson. Just we'll head over to our 4-4 in MindTap and do our work together, where we will fix a couple of correcting entries. I'll meet you over there.